Hello everyone, I just opened the last module for the semester where you'll find the remaining weeks and the course materials within each folder. I don't know if many of you heard, but an incredible, devastating, tragic event took place in Paris as the Cathedral of Notre Dame burned. Many of its, hopefully many of its treasures and relics will be able to be salvaged, but it's incredibly damaged, and much of the beautiful architecture will surely be rebuilt, but this cathedral that is from the built 1100 to 1300 we're losing quite a world treasure. I just wanted to scroll through some of the relics that are on view and have been on view for decades, centuries, for people to enjoy in these Christian history. And most notably, the remarkable rose stained glass windows telling the stories, biblical stories, on each pane of glass. And many of those are surely ruined as the fire burned hot enough to melt the lead that holds the window panes together. As you guys may recall from one of the previous videos talking about stained glass and glasswork, the painting that goes into these window parts are incredibly fragile in themselves. So this made me think of our discussion last week of Impressionism and Monet's ruined cathedral. These works are all variations of a facade of a cathedral very similar to Notre Dame. And then one of Monet's predecessors painted Notre Dame. Utrillo was much more concerned, less with light as the Impressionists are, and more, as we see in a more modern time, with variety of shape and form and how this is fractured and built into these towering structures of the cathedral. As we get into chapter 7 and 18 this week, I want you guys to focus on your discussion board post over the next week, couple of weeks. I've given you a little extension as opposed to trying to jam everything into 1 week. We're jamming it all into the next 2 weeks, so don't get behind on it, but I am asking you to make a ready-made, which you'll discover more about, but this ready-made combines 2 to 4 objects from your surrounding environment. Maybe you just select 4 things on your desk and try to play with them in a way where you're creating something completely new and inventive, maybe humorous, out of these works. And I want you to post I want you to do a post that takes your ready-made and a title for your ready-made for the discussion board. Make sure that this is an image in the discussion board post and not some kind of link or some kind of fractured connection that doesn't allow us to see your images, which is also what I found in some of your guys' local and global responses, that some of the images didn't link up. So I will confirm that with you individually, but make sure that you guys are thinking creatively about this. And then you'll click on the ready-made post and make sure to then follow up in the following week with a response to that post. So you guys will see that in our list of to-dos. We've got a lot coming up on Monday, April 22nd. Partially, I'm loading that up so that you guys have a little extra time to manipulate things like alterations of Museum of Me Final Gallery that will all then be due just a couple weeks later. So I'm going to keep coming back to this, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware of this funny little change of pace in our discussion post. For your final Museum of Me post, I will want you to go into your gallery that is your final selection, meaning that you've refined one of the 3 galleries you submitted to me with more images and more clarity in writing and titling that gallery. Make sure when you're in the gallery that you are clicking on the URL above to copy and paste into the discussion board so we can link to it. I'll say this really quickly because most all of you guys know this, but to edit this so that people can see it, make sure that you are choosing the public option here. Also note that you have up to 800 words for the description. So that's something that if you're writing it out in Word and pasting it in, that you'll be needing to take note of. It goes by quickly. So I talked a little bit about this patterning and this idea of finding some discovery in our everyday life. Also that kind of mystique of the feminine, and alongside this practice of quilting and stamping repeatedly that I think translates into a nice metaphor of how we can perceive our everyday life. So I also talk a little bit about these works coming from different time periods, different continents, having most created by males, but having a very feminine touch to them. And partially because they're in the context of, specifically setting them in the context of other works that are very motherly and earthly in nature. If you have a question on this, I posted my link to this in the announcements for this week. So feel free to check it out in more depth. And if you have specific questions on it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But what I'm looking for is one final gallery that is very well curated, where each piece plays off of the next, and where you could address how those pieces talk to one another, and do so briefly in your statement. Make sure to fill that statement out as much as you can to get as many words in as possible, and using your design language to do so.